The Nerd Academy podcast is released weekly at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, available on our website at www.thenerdacademypodcast.com and wherever you listen to podcasts. You can find the Nerd Academy podcast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. You can also help support the show by going to patreon.com/The Nerd Academy podcast, where every donation allows us to bring you more exciting content every week.
Hello there, welcome back to Knights of the Nerd Republic, the show where your favorite nerds talk all things about the galaxy far, far away for the last 5 years. I am your host, Jarod, the Dark Jedi Bachman Stubbs. I am back from Kentucky hanging out with a brand new member of Team TNAP, Bill Sheehy, and he's not here, but you know who is? The Lore Keeper, the Italian Stallion, the One-Eyed Knight, the freshly shaved, sexy thang, Connor Chiquiti.
I did not know that. I should have figured Bill was part of Team
So I
TNAP.
added him to the group chat.
Yeah, I should have figured that, but I just thought, maybe just because he's gonna show up on some guest things. But no, that's cool. Awesome. Yeah. We got Bill, baby.
We got Bill, BBY, as he always likes to say. Or just I can't remember, is it BBY or is it BB? How he always puts it in text.
I think it's BBY. Yeah, I think he types it as BBY. I could be wrong though.
That's because the moment I said BBY, I was like, wait, before the Battle of Yavin? But anyway, we have lots to talk about. Obviously, if you guys were keeping up with our coverage of Star Wars Celebration, Bill and I were live all weekend talking about the news out of Japan. So Connor and I are going to do a quickie news roundup just because there's 3 full live streams, 3 full podcasts talking about the news each day. But we're going to do a quickie rundown, and then we're going to talk about this first chapter of Andor Season 2. Very excited for all of that. But before we jump into that, a quick word from our sponsors. It's Sunday's Bloody Mary. You guys know the drill. Sunday's Bloody Mary has the most badass Bloody Mary accoutrement in the galaxy with their 3-time award-winning spicy Caesar mix, as well as their mild and traditional mixes. If the spice ain't for you, and also, go ahead and click the link in the description down below and use the code TNAP, T-N-A-P, to get 10% off your order and get the only Bloody Mary mix this former bartender will say can rival and surpass a from-scratch Bloody Mary. I will always say Bloody Mary mixes are ass. No shade, they suck. But Sunday's Bloody Mary is the only one that is better than a from-scratch Bloody Mary. Not only is it the only one that's good, it is the only one that is great. So take my word for it. Upgrade your Bloody Mary game forever and get your hands on some Sunday's Bloody Mary pronto. Now, Connor, with regards to Star Wars Celebration, how are you feeling? How are you feeling about the news? How are you feeling about, just like how it was presented? Did you keep up with the Star Wars live stream?
I was at work all 3 days, so I just kind of I was at work, and also considering it was in Japan, that I couldn't really watch it live because it was 2 a.m. our time.
Yeah, I mean the streams started each night around 9 or 10. And I think they went until 5 a.m.
That's insane. But then again, it's
that's the normal block. That's the normal block. It's just the time zones of it all make it feel buck wild.
Yep. So I got caught up the day after, I guess, on the news. And so hearing about Maul Shadow Lord was cool. Hearing about, the announcements for the movies, and the fact that, from what I could tell, they were actually pretty transparent for once in terms of hey, this is where we are in the production timeline. Here's the title. Here's what we got so far. Here's when we're gonna film.
Yeah.
Considering that for the past 10 years 10, 9, 8, I don't know, 8, 7 years or so, Star Wars has been very cagey when it comes to movie stuff. where it's like, oh, we don't really want to tell people this and all that.
Yeah,
But
I
like,
mean, it's been that weird mix, right? Where it's like
yeah,
we don't want to set anything in stone, but we also want to announce a bunch of stuff. And I don't want to get lost in the weeds of the whole, oh, they keep announcing things and none of it's happening. And it's like it's really only been 2 or 3 projects that have been like crickets,
yeah,
which is normal. A lot of that was, Bob Paycheck, Bob Chapek.
paycheck.
That was the nickname everybody gave him. I meant to say his real name, not the derogatory nickname. Bob Paycheck was for what we've heard, what we understand was very like, if Lucasfilm had an idea percolating, he was like, announce it right now, get it out there. And they're like, but sir, we're about to fire the person who theoretically would have starred in this show. Announce it, get it out there. So it kind of.
Gee, I wonder who they would have fired.
It was that hack fraud Gina Carano. But there was a lot of that. So you have like Rangers of the New Republic, kind of crickets on Rogue Squadron, which we'll talk about. I think Starfighter.
Yeah, it probably is.
Pardon me, is going to be like a retooling of Rogue Squad.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking,
droids. We
too.
haven't really heard anything about.
Forgot
The
about
the
droids.
Lando show we got moved on last year that it was becoming a movie. I'll tell you this.
Nothing.
Because I mean, like with the crickets on Lando, I was not surprised by that for a very specific reason. Last year was for those of you who keep up with Donald Glover's music, you already know this. Last year was a big deal for Donald Glover because that was him retiring Childish Gambino. Now, he was very vague about it because he's always been vague about his projects. That like he was basically like, I'm retiring Childish Gambino, the character, but he never said he was done making music. But he said, this is my last album. These are going to be my last 2 albums as Childish Gambino, and this is going to be my last tour as Childish Gambino. And this is like truly like one of the luckiest things that has ever happened to me. I got to see the Bando Stone in the New World tour before he canceled the rest of it because he was having health issues. So again, I was, truly like I thank my lucky stars every night. Every time I hear a Childish Gambino song in the car with Taylor, I'm like, I look at her every time and I'm like, I'm so grateful that he made it to Pittsburgh, because Childish. I talk a lot about Kendrick on air. Childish Gambino is my number 2, and it's a very close number 2. So like getting to see Gambino live, especially knowing this was it for the character, especially now knowing that tour got cut short by like 75%. I was very lucky for that. Now, all this news starts percolating about the Lando show has a new writer and it's his brother. And actually the Lando show is a movie now. I was like, oh, that's cool. And then he went on tour and then he canceled the tour and was talking about all these health issues. I'm like, we're not hearing anything about Lando for at least a year and a half. We're not hearing shit about Lando for at least a year and a half. Like, no way, no how. So I was unsurprised by that. But people have been weird about that. I'm not that worried about it. I will say, like you said, Connor, I am glad that it seems like the announcements they're making and the triggers they're pulling have much more to do with stuff that is like really, really far down the pipeline and is like ready to shoot, like Starfighter, like Mando and Grogu, which is already in post-production.
Yeah.
Like there is nothing, like again, we didn't hear anything about the Rey movie. We didn't hear anything about Dawn of the Jedi, which I'm kind of fine with.
Yeah.
I think we're going to hear more about that stuff at the next celebration or D23 next year. I think right now the focus was on stuff that is much closer to being released, and that Starfighter is going to have a big moment at Celebration 27. But I think we're going to hear about the Rey stuff and the Dawn of the Jedi stuff in the next year or so. But yeah, was there anything else that like you're really excited about before we kind of run down the list here?
I mean, there wasn't. I mean, nothing really super excited about. It's just the fact that, like, I guess because of just life in general, has just taken up so much time that I just haven't had like the time or motivation of really get back into Star Wars. Like I have been into Star Wars, but like especially with the books and comics.
I think you sell yourself short in a really funny way that because like you are in the weeds for Star Wars more than your average fan. You're just like not reading everything all the time. So you
Oh
go,
yeah.
oh, I'm not as into Star Wars when like you're in the weeds. It's
Oh yeah,
just
no,
not as deep as it normally is for you.
yeah, it just feels like it isn't as I just feel like I'm not as active as I once was and probably still could be. So it's just funny that like Celebration just kind of kickstarted that kickstarted that sort of part of my brain of like, oh yeah, I can get back into this. And I was like, oh, I should make a to-do list and write down everything I need to catch up on. And I realized, holy shit, I need to catch up on a lot.
Hey, and again, there's no pressure to do that either.
No,
Like
there's
that's the big
not.
thing. You just like go with it as you get with it. God,
Like, dude,
I
I
don't think
haven't
I've
even
read, and
finished.
I don't think I've read a brand new Star Wars book since the most recent High Republic adult novel. Because I've just been on my Legends kick, where I've been like getting through all the post Return of the Jedi stuff, and like once I'm done with Fate of the Jedi, I'm gonna like catch up on High Republic. I might take a detour to Mask of Fear just because like it's gonna be good to like commingle with Andor. But like part of me is like, ooh, the Andor, like it'll keep me in that headspace. But also part of me is like, I think a part of my brain is gonna want like fantastical, space wizard shit. So I might stick with the High Republic for now and then do Mask of Fear as kind of a come down from Andor. I haven't made up my mind yet.
Yeah, dude, it's bad. I haven't even finished Bad Batch season 3.
I know you keep saying that, and you really don't need to tell on yourself for that every time.
I know I don't, but I need to remind myself so I can finish
He's
it.
holding himself accountable. Everybody get in the comments. Everybody get in the comments and say finish Bad Batch, damn it. And then
I'll
every
probably do that
time
tonight. Actually, I don't know about tonight, but maybe I'll start at least one of the episodes.
How many do you have to watch?
I think most of the season.
So there you go. But so day one, obviously, I had some of my frustrations kind of rear their ugly head again with Celebration this year. Just with like
the live stream stuff.
I had a moment with Bill and Taylor where I think more so Taylor, because obviously Bill keeps up with this shit, and we were obviously staying with Bill over the weekend. But I think Taylor got to witness firsthand what I had been bitching about for years. Where not only did they not show us the Mando and Grogu panel, which I think was egregious, especially because they then immediately trotted out Ryan Gosling and Sean Levy, and then subsequently Favreau and Pascal and Filoni to talk about everything that was talked about at the panel.
Yep.
Like, just stream that panel. Let people let the world find out live about Star Wars Starfighter. Let the world see live the stills from Mando and Grogu. If they wanted to keep that sizzle reel under wraps, valid. Totally get it.
Yeah.
Did it leak online immediately? Yes. Have I watched it multiple times? Yes. That John Wick bullshit with the Mandalorian made me horny. It's incredible kills. Bill and I were talking about it. That like effortless little with the flamethrower, so fucking good. But like again, do what they did before. I remember for I think it was one of the Rebels panels, like in 2017, 2016. I think it was Chicago, where they had the whole conversation and they're like, okay, guys, we're going to show you a trailer. And then they shut the stream off.
Yep.
For like 3 minutes. And then they came back. Everyone was like, wow. And it was great. Do that again. Like, that's my thing.
Yeah.
And then so that was frustrating. And I was like, okay, whatever. People flew all the way to Japan. If you want to keep this shit under lock and key to like really give these people something to look forward to, fine. It was then, and it was mostly the Celebration Live interview. I believe it was Kristen Baver and Pedro and Dave, where the entire conversation was them talking about all the shit they can't talk about. And that got me heated. That got me really, like, that was I'm having flashbacks to like 18 Willow trailers while they won't show us shit. And that really got me worked up. But other than that, I wish they were more forthcoming with some of this stuff. But those are the big ones. Also, Maul Shadow Lord. Connor, you're a big animation guy. I'm a big animation guy. How are you feeling about Shadow Lord? Because I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not gonna lie to you. I think this is the most exciting announcement out of Celebration for me.
So I'd probably go with that and another animated project that we'll get to.
Yes.
Because like no one really anticipated it. Like everyone, like there was always rumblings, I think, about like, oh, there's a new animated show coming out at some point. Ooh,
And
what's
there
it
have
going
been
to be
rumblings for
about?
some time about a Darth Maul project as well.
Yeah, it's just I don't know if we ever would have thought it was gonna like coexist. And so when I saw the logo and I saw like the one still of Maul with his saber, I was like, fuck yeah. So I'm excited. I'm very interested to see what story they're gonna tell with Maul and like the crime syndicate angle of it. I'd be very interested to see how far it'll go and
Like timeline wise, like how long it'll last, like
how long it'll last, because like from what I can remember, there's a point. Okay, I'm maybe getting my timeline mixed up, but isn't there a point like before Solo where like Maul has a pretty solid empire and then it just kind of comes all crashing down?
I mean, and granted, this is me having not had a chance to read like the Shadow, like the War of the Syndicate stuff in the comics. That's actually at the top of my list here. Because Taylor and I are going to be redoing the backyard, and I was like, I'm just like going to spend my Sundays like drinking beer, reading comics in the back porch, and that's my goal for the summer is to like do that and listen to Steelers games. But I'm fully turning into a 40-year-old man, but with comic books.
Hell yeah.
Just jumping 13 years in the future. But if I'm not mistaken, Crimson Dawn is this like very powerful kind of linchpin of the underworld. Maul is very strongly in charge of it. And then eventually he ends up on Malachor. And then Kira's in charge for the rest of it. Again, the how, whens, and whys, I don't think we know at all already. So I think that's part of like the point of this show is that we already don't know shit about this time period for him. So I too am also very curious about the timeline. Have you seen the footage they showed? Because I've only seen still images. I've only seen the still images. Have you seen the images?
I've seen I've seen just the image of Maul. I haven't seen anything else really.
So it's Maul. It's him fighting with in terms of like they're fighting on his side. Some like Knight brothers. I think they had like rotary guns, which is fun. Maul doing a prison break. This Redskin Twi'lek, who has been of a lot of discussion as to whom she may become. A lot of people suggesting she may be our canon Darth Talon. A lot of interesting stuff. I'm super pumped. I think that, like, I think I've told the story before as well. I underestimated Solo severely. The production woes that were so kind of like publicly broadcast spooked me. And it was the movie of everything that had been announced that I cared about the least.
Yep.
So whenever it debuted at Cannes, I said, fuck it. And I just like read every spoiler that came out of Cannes Film Festival. And when I got to the stuff about Darth Maul, I'm like, this is insane. And when I
wish it
saw it,
wasn't spoiled. I got
and
spoiled like 2 days before.
I wish in hindsight, I absolutely wish I hadn't gotten any spoilers for Solo myself. But that was on me because I sought them out. Like
Yeah.
that wasn't like I was scrolling on Twitter and somebody
Yep.
was like, Han Solo dies at the end. Like that
Yeah.
was like I was watching videos and like reading posts of people from Cannes. Pardon my hiccups. And I was like, the Maul shit's crazy. And the people I saw it with were like, what? As like the it's kind of like bleeding through the speaker. It's very cool. And
I saw it with my family, and like I can't even lie to you. I was right next to my parents when Darth Maul showed up. And on one hand, I hate that I was spoiled. So because I had a more subdued reaction, but on the other hand, if I wasn't spoiled, they would have probably they wouldn't have disowned me. They probably would have been like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?"
The 302 you because Darth Maul's like back. But no, so like I'm very excited to see how we get to like full-fledged crime boss Maul, because so every time we've seen Maul as a crime boss, aside from Solo, where he is a dedicated crime lord, the crime syndicates, the Mandalorians, all of that shit is a means to an end. It is him amassing power so that he might be able to take on the Republic and or the Emperor.
Yeah.
This feels like Darth Maul went, I'll let the Empire do their thing. I'll have my own empire that I will run from behind the scenes. And everybody will think it's Dryden Voss or whatever other jobber I put in on the front facing end of this. Nobody will know that it's actually me. And that's something that excites me. I'm also excited by the potentiality of seeing how Darth Maul ends up kind of stranded on Malachor. Very excited for that. I have a theory / wish about what I want for the show, but before we touch on that, I do want to talk about the Darth Talon of it all. I talked about this on the live stream. Connor, how are you feeling about that speculation that we might be getting the Darth Talon stuff? Because I have a lot of opinions, and I don't think they're what you expect them to be.
I think it would be extremely funny if that ended up being true, because of the whole thing of us finding out, like, what was it, a couple years ago, that like George Lucas was like, yeah, so I want Darth Talon and Darth Maul to be buddies. Like that would just be the funniest fucking thing ever. Because like in a way, they're just still making George's wishes come true. So I would find it extremely funny for that reason alone. And so
you're down for Talon. You're down for it to be Darth Talon.
Pretty much, yeah, for that reason alone. So
for me, and then we'll move on to some of the other stuff. I just want to talk about this because this is the thing I'm the most excited by. I have a lot of mixed opinions on Darth Talon. I talked about this on the live stream, so I won't dwell on it. I think she's a very compelling character in Legends, and I think that she is sold short because of the artistic sensibilities of the time. That when you have a lady in a comic book, the impulse is to draw her and design her to be the most like sexed up thing you've ever seen in your life.
Especially Twi'leks.
Yeah, and all the weird baggage that comes with that. The Darth Talon, fan art is certainly something. And I kind of grew a disdain for her because of the fandom and the way that she was treated. as this kind of weird sex object. But I do think she's really interesting. I think she's emblematic of the rule of the one Sith that Darth Krayt instituted. Where instead of the rule of two, it was the one Sith, where there were hundreds, if not thousands, of Sith at a time, but they all lived and worked to further the ends of the guy at the top, which was Darth Krayt. And her fanatical loyalty and subservience to Krayt kind of made her the poster child for how that cult-like version of the Sith worked so well. And, George, infamous guy who picks and chooses what he likes from Legends, because again, that's the thing with George. It's the thing that everybody, likes to have such a selective memory about, is that George's opinions on Legends ranged from, oh, I like this whole Coruscant thing, let's use that.
Yep.
On the good side of it, and ranged all the way to Mara Jade doesn't exist and I will never write anything with her in it if you put a gun to my fucking head. So like it's so like that like that's the spectrum of George's relationship with Legends, right? So I don't think whenever George is trying to adapt Darth Talon into his like rough, outline for the sequels, I don't think it had anything to do with her character in Star Wars Legacy beyond she looks cool and like Darth Maul.
Yeah.
And even before we knew about George's ideas for a sequel trilogy, people were like weirdly pairing up Maul and Talon all the time because they just look the same. Red-skinned alien with scary black tattoos. Sure, let's make him a thing. What I am excited for in a canon adaptation of that character, is the opportunity to adapt that just psychotic fealty to a master into canon, and to see how that interacts with Maul taking somebody like Talon, for somebody with that predisposition to being a like devout member of a cult, to put them under the control of Maul. Because Maul is defined by this feeling of being cast aside and replaced.
And so he'll find his purpose through that, if that ends
and
up
giving him an apprentice who has like psychotic fealty to him, similar to how Savage was so ride or die for him because that was his brother. Yep. I think this is an interesting angle if this Redskin Twi'lek ends up being Darth Talon.
Yeah, and
that could go a completely different angle. It could go a completely different angle. Sheer speculation. I think it'd be fucking cool as hell. Moving on. Day 2, Ahsoka panel. Very exciting. Confirmation that Hayden is returning as Anakin Skywalker. We got our first look at Rory McCann as Baylan Skull, and we also learned that we're going to be getting some like Heir to the Empire style action that's going to involve, Admiral Akbar and Thrawn going head to head. Very exciting stuff. So, how are you feeling about Ahsoka season 2?
I mean, so it's weird because so I have a sort of, I don't want to say complicated relationship with Ahsoka, but like this is the one show where I'm just kind of like in the back of my head, the very back of my head, that I'm just like, I really wish this was animated. Because again, there's that whole thing of like, oh, the Rebels, sequel, the Rebels animated sequel that we got for like the last 6 years or whatever. Yeah. That like, there's that small part of me that's like, I really do wish this was animated. And I feel like it would serve the story better if it was. I don't know, but I'm looking forward to it. I'll be interested to see what direction they go with the story. Yeah. So I'm very just kind of neutral about it.
I'm very excited. Like you said, they kind of aside from knowing that Akbar and Thrawn are going to be going head to head as military leaders, that was kind of the only real piece of news we got. There was also some concept art. I didn't see it. Frankly, I'm avoiding it. a little bit. But what I did see and what I did see described is very exciting. We also got Star Wars Zero Company, the new turn-based RPG or turn-based combat game. I'm really excited for this, and I would not have been 4 months ago. This is fully because of like how like addicted to Baldur's Gate I am at this point. That like I am so sold on turn-based combat right now that this pitch sings for me. Setting it during the Clone War, having it be this like Black Ops A-team style unit, that's like a disgraced Republic officer with a clone who was loyal to him enough to walk away, and this Umbaran and a Mandalorian and a Jedi Padawan. Like, it's just a really exciting lineup of characters and an incredibly cool like makeup of a team and kind of like ethos for a team set in my opinion, the best era to set this in.
Yeah.
So very excited for that. And then day 3 gave us a lot of news about Star Wars Visions.
Yeah. I just never would have like. Did I think that we're gonna get a follow up to like Ninth Jedi and all that? Probably, yeah. Did I expect a limited series sequel? No.
Ninth Jedi's getting so much love. Like, not only does it get a follow up in Volume 3, then it's getting its own show, which I think is wild. Also, we are going to be covering all 3 volumes of Star Wars Visions and the Ninth Jedi spinoff on Pro and Noob. So go over and subscribe to the Mitch692 channel for that, because this guy's getting another season of Stalking Star Wars on Pro and Noob. Thank you, Star Wars Visions.
I do need to watch Visions Season 2. I think I saw the first 4 episodes. I'm like, this is pretty good. And I just never continued with it.
I saw pretty much all of it. The issue I ran into was just like, and like, this is a silly nitpick. I think it's really exciting when Star Wars releases something on May the 4th.
Yeah.
I think it runs the risk of stuff getting kind of lost in the shuffle. I think that because something's like, oh, let's celebrate May the 4th with this thing, there's also so much other Star Wars shit happening. There's other announcements. There's like merch releases. And like, there's lots of fans who are going to events on that day too.
Yep.
That like people are missing shit. So like for me personally, it wasn't anything like that. But like when Volume 2 came out, I just happened to be off that day. So I like cleaned the whole house. And while I was watching Vision Season 2, like I was fighting to stay awake because I was fucking exhausted. So like I very much need to revisit Vision Season 2 or Volume 2. I'm more familiar with Volume 1. But I'm very excited to give Volume 2 another crack. But yeah, so like you said, we got returning studios. We have follow-ups to Ninth Jedi, Village Bride, and The Duel.
So excited for all those, man.
All coming. Plus, like you said, Ninth Jedi sequel series. And then the other big news we got was Celebration 2027. Los Angeles, celebrating 50 years of Star Wars. Super close to the future George Lucas Museum. So I was looking at the map. Connor, are we get what?
No, go ahead. Sorry.
I say, Connor, are we gonna get you in LA? Are we gonna get? Are you gonna leave the house? You're gonna leave the house?
I'm considering it.
Considering it.
So I mean, obviously, I gotta like figure it out. I gotta figure out the logistics and everything. But like, I mean, the way I look at it right now, I would probably take a week off of work.
That's what I'm looking to do as well.
And probably like fly in like the day before the day before the first day of Celebration.
Because it's a 4-day too. It's a 4-day because it's starting. I think it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
That's wild. Yeah, so I'd probably fly in that Wednesday and then I don't know, go from there. So
yeah,
but
I know I probably want to
hoping.
make a week out of it. I probably am going to end up. I was telling Taylor, I was like, I really want to go to the George Museum. I really want to go to Disneyland. I've been to Disney World before, but Disneyland has the Marvel park too. So, and because of very funny rights, like copyright things, they can only do the Marvel park in California.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Oh,
because
that's really interesting.
well, because again, it's the reason why it took so long to get the X-Men and the Fantastic Four in the MCU, and why Spider-Man is so touch and go. Marvel was on the cusp of bankruptcy in the 90s. So to dig themselves out of that hole, they sold off the rights to a bunch of their characters in film to a bunch of studios. Universal ended up with basically all of the theme park rights to Marvel.
Oh, wow.
So when you go to like the Marvel part of Universal, it's Spider-Man and the Avengers and Fantastic Four stuff and Hulk stuff. So like they're able to do all of that, but if they were to do it at Disney World, it would cause like a big legal thing. I don't remember all the details. But that's why Disneyland is the only place that has Avengers Campus. So I would very much like to go to Disneyland. So I am absolutely doing everything in my power to get to this celebration in 2027, and I will, by hook or by crook, we are getting Jay to LA. I'll tell you that.
I will hopefully try to go to my first ever celebration. So.
That'll be my first too, man.
And it'll be on my birthday.
It will be. That's right.
Yep. So hopefully we get like Jedi 3 news or some shit. I don't know. No, I don't know.
I certainly hope we get Jedi 3 news before then. Holy shit.
I mean, fair, but like considering that it took us like 3 years to get Survivor news, I wouldn't be shocked if like. But also, I think you did mention that like there was the fact
who brought up the pandemic stuff. It was Kaysen who brought up the pandemic stuff, and I think he's right. I think he's right on that. And there's also like I brought up, they don't have to worry about jumping console generation.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Fucking A, I hope they don't. Because I will be 7 shades of pissed off if the PS5 is already outdated by 27.
Yeah, I'd be pissed.
But yeah, like I said, lots of cool stuff coming out of Celebration. We're kind of glossing past it just because we spent so much time talking about it over the weekend. Also, I don't think we acknowledged it. Star Wars Starfighter comes out May 27th, 2027, the exact 50th anniversary of Star Wars. We are getting another Star Wars movie. The first Star Wars movie, the first Star Wars movie. Oh my God, my hiccups are fucking killing me. Moment for a drink.
It's the worst.
I know.
You're dealing with 1 HP damage in real life.
I am. I really like every time I hiccup, it's like psychic damage for me and the viewer.
Like I saw like a TikTok of that sounded horrible coming out of my mouth. I saw a TikTok, but no, I saw this TikTok where it was like, "What's 1 HP of damage in real life?" And just reading the comments is so goddamn funny.
I love that.
So.
But yeah, no, it'll be 50 years of Star Wars. We get the first Star Wars movie set after the Skywalker saga. Very, very, very exciting stuff.
That's fucking wild.
Right?
5 years. It's 5 years after Rise of Skywalker too. Not even like, oh, we're doing it a year after. No, 5.
5.
Like, damn.
I'm glad it's 5. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm glad it's 5 because I said for the longest I wished there was a much bigger gap in universe between Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker.
Oh God, that needs to be short. That need to be 5 years.
3 to 5. 3 to 5. Because like there's so much storytelling potential for those for a longer span of time. And when you shorten it down to a year, we are eventually, inevitably, going to run into the issue that the comics and the books had, where it's like, how do you fit the War of the Bounty Hunters and the Syndicate Wars and all the stuff with Han and all the stuff with Vader and into like barely a calendar year?
Yeah.
Right. That is bananas. And the fact that Last Jedi and Last Force Awakens and Last Jedi are like hours apart is already like you already do not have any real estate to tell any stories.
No.
You have zero real estate to really tell any stories between between the Force Awakens and the Last Jedi. So I really wish they would have given themselves a bigger gap between Jedi and Skywalker.
Because from what I can remember, the original episode 9, I think it was like 10 years.
That's too much.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm like 99% sure it was 10 years, which is funny because like Phantom Menace 2 Clones is
10 yeah. Because it's like it's 10, 3, 19, 3, 1-ish, 30, a couple hours, 1.
Yeah.
You know, but no, I think leaving 5 years between the fall of the First Order and the Battle of Exegol to whenever Starfighter takes place leaves lots of room for stories about whatever comes after the New Republic, for whatever the new Republic is going to look like. Reestablishing the new Jedi Order in those 5 years, you know, how the galaxy is rebuilding. That leaves lots of room for great supplemental stories to be told. Comics, books, games, whatever the hell it is, TV, whatever it is, that 5 years is fertile fucking ground. And I think that 5-year gap is the perfect sweet spot for it.
Yep.
But yeah, so I think that's all we have for Celebration. Moving in, Andor is back. We are beginning this very interesting mode of dropping the episodes. We're basically getting a movie a week. I don't hate it, but it is certainly a wild decision, and one that makes what we do difficult. But we will figure it out as time goes on.
Yep.
But yeah, Connor, chapter 1 of season 2 of Andor. What are you thinking?
Well, I mean, just
Before we talk about it, how are you feeling?
The best way I can put it right now is there haven't been many times where I've had to use other Star Wars material as a palate cleanser from Star Wars, from like other, like using Star Wars as a palate cleanser from Star Wars.
Yeah.
This was one of those times. And it was very weird thinking about it. But like also at the same time, it felt appropriate. And then also, this was just a fun thing I was texting a friend of mine about. I was on the second episode when I just thought of this dumb, cute thing where I was like, oh, you know, I was texting my friend and I told her, you know, it'd be a really cute crossover. Bix Colleen meeting the Skeleton Crew kids. It feels like something that she would need. This was before I watched the third episode.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I had a similar situation where I want to read it and the syntax of it verbatim to you.
Okay.
So Angie, friend of the show, friend of my pets, dear friend of mine in the real world, said, all caps, very interested in your thoughts on Andor thus far. I said, just started episode 2. I'm already loving this so much more than season 1. This feels so much more like Star Wars to me while maintaining that grit and bite season 1 had. And then they said Cassian feels so much closer to where we find him in Rogue One, which I love. Just finished episode 3, so I'm digesting everything. Definitely going to rewatch later. And obviously had no context for what, you know, left them. So, oh man, I have a lot to think about. So overall, before we get to episode 3, I want to say what I said in that text absolutely meant, and I still stand by. These first 3 episodes, for the most part, felt so much more like Star Wars. And I don't want to start doing bricks and screws discourse, either discoursing about that statement or like the conversation around it. For me, as always has been the case, I look at Star Wars like a fairy tale, like a morality play. And I think that is what defines it best. You know, I've said 1,000 times, Star Wars has more in common with Lord of the Rings than it does with Star Trek. With any other sci-fi, it has more in common with Lord of the Rings. Even something like Dune, that Star Wars borrowed so heavily from, it has more in common with Lord of the Rings, in my opinion, in that it feels more like fantasy than it ever has science fiction. It just takes place in space. It just has spaceships and laser guns instead of horses and ships and, traditional magic and crossbows and shit. So there was something that felt so pulpy and so adventurous about the opening TIE fighter heist.
Yeah.
And
on Sinar.
Which like even it being on Sinar felt so cool because and Alex Damon got into this and it was so funny because I remember thinking after I finished the episode, I thought it was just a company.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I
And
think I
this is the first time Sinar was a world that the company's based off of, which I love, or based out of, I should say.
Like, this is one of those that seeing the Sinar title card pop up, I flipped out. And that's one of those like, oh yeah, you're not going to flip out about this unless you're deep in the fucking weeds.
Yeah. And it's stuff like that where I was super excited by. And, the heist, obviously the conversation Cassian has with the like Imperial who's like helping him with stealing the TIE Avenger is a lot of fun. Or not fun, but like it's really good. It gets to the heart of like Cassian feeling like he is now a revolutionary. This is somebody who went from a drifter who was kind of out for his own and to just kind of watch his own back to somebody who understands that this is a bigger fight than just the tip of his nose. This is bigger than just him. And I loved that. And I thought it was beautiful. The conversations he's having, the way that like the woman in the factory, is kind of like falling back on this. Like there's an expectation that I kind of just bat my eyes at you and we're going to use that as my cover. I really loved that as a plot device. And, and then you get into the heist itself and he can't pilot the thing. And then he gets out and he's kind of stammering about. And we see him end up on what we later find out is Yavin 4. We have the rebels.
That was such a cool reveal.
Oh my God. And we have the rebels infighting, so everything that happened in those first two and most of the third episodes, they felt more like Star Wars. It felt more adventurous.
Yeah, there was this sense of adventure, but like in a very espionage type way.
Absolutely. So. And again, when I say adventure, I'm glad you made that distinction because it's not Skeleton Crew or Mando adventure. It has that bite, it has that gravity. Like this is not a fun, this isn't a fun tale, but there's still something pulpy. And there's that Star Wars je ne sais quoi about it that I went back and forth between feeling and not feeling a lot through season 1. And that's not to season 1's detriment to its quality. It was something that made it hard for me personally. And, even including like whenever the rebels are shooting at each other on Yavin, like the fact that like one of the rebels screams Ichuta at somebody and she's just spraying and praying, like like stuff like that, where like it felt like out of nowhere Tony Gilroy went, oh yeah, this is Star Wars, so she's gonna say some random shit in Huttese and we're gonna bring up the Rakatans again. Like
it's so goddamn funny that
it's such a great pull. It's such a great fucking pull. But yeah, it's stuff like that. It felt so much more like Star Wars than the first season did. And, I really appreciated it on that level. I was very excited that we saw Krennic as early as we did.
So it was funny because I remember it was in some interview that Tony did where he's like, yeah, the Gorman stuff is going to kind of be in the whole season. It's not going to be like one arc. It's going to be throughout the whole season. And then like we get to the fucking summit. And Krennic's like, yeah, all these people here that I've chosen, yeah, we're doing this project and we're going We're going to figure out what to do about Gorman. And just the thing I loved about the first episode the most is that for a good amount of it, it was that sort of calculated wretchedness of this Imperial, like, inner circle group conversing about, like, oh, this is how we're going to get at Gorman. This is what we're going to do. And then you just compare that to just the absolute chaos of this one brigade fighting amongst itself.
Yeah.
Which is just such a good contrast.
Well, I mean, and this is everybody. I say at every Star Wars show is that, like, I try my best to not watch the work of our contemporaries and friends before I talk about it myself. Because I always end up being afraid that I'm gonna, like, subconsciously plagiarize. But Alex Damon, Star Wars Explained, his video today, he put it so beautifully about how much of a metaphor for real life resistance, real life, infighting among those who want to push back against an authoritarian regime, eat themselves. That it is the constant push and pull of, everybody's fighting over who's in charge of what and who gets the title to this. And, it's flashing back to Saw Gerrera's iconic monologue last season. That while they've spent time fighting with each other like children and then trying to solve their problems with a game of rock, paper, scissors, congratulations, you've pissed away all your time. The literal monsters are out now. They're going to eat you. They're going to eat you because you spent so much time fighting each other that nobody could just, like, put this shit to the side and go, well, your policy on this is slightly different than mine, and yours is this. Da, 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 da. The monsters are at the gate. Shut the fuck up and get ready to rock and roll.
Yep.
And that was so poignant and so tragic. And, like, it goes to the might of the Imperial war machine. The fact that, the what was it, the Ministry of Enlightenment?
Yes.
Which I laughed and I out loud said,
God.
it's the Department of False Flags.
Yep.
Because the whole time they're like, oh yeah, you remember that time, like, a random Imperial died because of the Gormans? We might have had something to do with that. And it's like, oh, like, you guys are fomenting your own rebellion. And not only does it speak to the profound arrogance of the Empire that they don't think that making their own enemies is ever going to backfire on them, while
they think they have it under control.
Yeah, like, oh yeah, we can control our own. We can create controlled opposition. No, the fuck you can't.
Nope.
That is not how this works.
And
You're
it was
setting yourself up for failure.
The thing I found so interesting. Well, okay, first of all, it's so goddamn good to see Ben Mendelsohn back in Star Wars, man.
God, he's
Fuck,
so fun
I
to
missed
watch.
him.
I love director Krennic. It was kind of a bit because I just wanted to be pithy about Andor and all the discourse again. But I really do mean it. Director Krennic was the thing I was the most excited for. I love that character. He is so fun to watch in Rogue One, and just
he's such a goddamn drama queen. And, like,
there's just something to the texture of his voice and his cadence that is just so fun. Like, sorry, not sorry, because this is language I don't like to use. I really do resent the fact that he was wasted in the MCU in the way he was, with Secret Invasion. Like, I think there was room for him to play a much more compelling character than just Talos, especially knowing how Talos' story ends now.
It's always interesting. So was Talos like good?
Yes, he was.
Okay.
He was the Skrull in Captain Marvel that was
Okay.
framed as the villain leader Skrull, who was really the leader of the Skrull refugees, who ends up becoming, like, one of Fury's, like, main alien go-betweens.
Okay, no, because I'm asking because it's like, I think because Ben Mendelsohn as Krennic was my first ever, like, exposure to him, and then I think I remember seeing clips of him as a villain in other things. That, like, I think I saw a clip of him in Secret Invasion, and I was like, wait, he's good? This is
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah,
I'm unsettled.
Talos is a good guy. Talos is a good guy.
It
It's
is
just
weird seeing Ben Mendelsohn act like a good guy, I
yeah,
guess.
and he's very funny, and he's probably my favorite part of that show. Not that there's a whole lot for me to love, but it
But
is what it
let's
is.
see. What else with I don't know. Yeah, Krennic. I love the fact that we got to see Krennic and Deidre interact. And I love I really loved that whenever they would pan to the council, like pretty much every Imperial was like stoic as hell. And then they would pan to Deidre, and there would always be that like I don't know how to describe what she was probably feeling, but like I always felt to me at least it seemed like she felt just a tad unsettled or a tad like I guess that's the best way to put it. Just like a tad unsettled about something.
I mean, when you look at the conversation she ends up having with Director Krennic, it's her being like, "Yeah, this plan is insane. It's never going to work."
Yeah.
Like there's too much there's too much of an opening here for this to implode on itself. Like she is again, it's what I said about season 1. Deidre Miro and Cyril Karn are right about damn near everything. And it is the Empire's, fat, happy, gluttonous hubris that will always never let them listen to those people. It is the Death Star technician who's like, hey, Grand Moff Tarkin, they're getting really close to the reactor. Retreat now in our time of triumph. You overestimate their chances. Like it's that mentality where it's like, oh, we've gotten away with staging these false flags and pitting these rebels and these insurgents against each other. They don't have a snowball's chance in hell of actually like mustering up the ability to take us on head on. It is profound arrogance.
Yep.
And Deidre sees through it.
Yep.
Deidre sees right through it, and she knows that this is damned to fail. And I, like you said, I love that conversation between her and Orson, where it is him being like, I didn't ask you here because I wanted you to like give me the softball opinion bullshit. What do you think?
Yep.
And I love the conversation that she then has with Partagaz, where he's like, hey man, this looks like a demotion and they're going to treat you like it is. And you need to act like it. This is a gift. This is an opportunity for you to show up and show out and show these guys what you're made of, and really do something special with the Gorman project. It also speaks to again, like Nemec said in his very scary, unstable manifesto, that
Ooh.
it's like
he's just as bad as the Empire.
it's 1,000 atrocities at once. Where
Yep.
the Empire is like, we need to harvest this bullshit mineral so that we can keep going with the Emperor's energy proposal, which again, we all know it's the fucking Death Star.
Yeah.
And it's the heinous crime of a galaxy that is so defined by resource management and how important interplanetary shipping is and interplanetary coexistence is, that if there is even a snowball's chance in hell that you can create some type of infinite renewable energy, but you're applying it to a planet killer, that's reprehensible. It's repulsive. And, it speaks to a couple weeks ago when I was on Bombhead and they were over here because it was a simulcast. And we were talking about like, the way that Palpatine saw the dyad, that in that immediate moment where the existence of like weird esoteric force shit that shouldn't exist comes into his lap, instead of wanting anything from it at all, he uses it as a battery.
Yep.
And that is how the Sith ideology has oozed into the Empire. Where everything is about take, abuse, consume, ours, not yours, mine. that was really, really, really fun to watch. And obviously the Mon Mothma stuff was a lot of fun. Um, I think it's funny that even though the Mon Mothma stuff, in my opinion, was probably the most compelling and the most fun to watch, it was also the part that was like kind of the most obvious where it was going the whole time. Like the increasing crash outs of Tay Kolma leading up to the very clear implication that Cinta whacked him.
Yeah,
You
so I'm
know,
gonna be completely honest. Maybe it was because I was so goddamn tired by the third episode, but I was like, I need to power through this. I can't wait till tomorrow. I did not fucking realize that was Syntha at the end. And I didn't realize it. I didn't even think about the implication that, like, oh yeah, Take Home was getting whacked. Like, I straight up did not realize like what the implication was. And I'll probably just say it now. Like, it's so funny because I remember watching in the first trailer that we got for Andor, like the whole that like one clip of the dance scene. It's like,
yeah,
oh, cool. There's some revelty. She'll get to, Mon Mothma will get to be joyful for a tiny bit. And it's like, no, she's pissed drunk.
yeah,
No, one of
yeah,
her buddies is going to get whacked and her daughter's in a child marriage.
yeah. I mean, again,
Like,
Alex.
I was thinking about that. I'm like, fuck, I'm kind of unsettled now. I'm thinking about that moment.
Well, like, and Alex again, he put it so well where he's talking about this moment with Mon. You know, Perrin does his whole speech at the rehearsal or whatever, where he's talking about the virtues of gaiety and joy, and how find joy, find enjoyment, find pleasure where you can, because the galaxy is cruel, and find time for you, and that's all well and good up until it is only ever you. That is the staunch difference between Perrin and Mon, is that she is capable, maybe even to a fault, of looking so far beyond herself, where Perrin cannot see past the tip of his nose. And with him, it is constant revelry, constant gaiety, constantly hanging out with these people who are like just morally repugnant people. Where Mon is only ever putting on a nice face so she can get one step closer, one step closer, one step closer, and nickel and diming it, till she can actually do something, which we know she will eventually. Um, but yeah, like just the way that she's drinking to numb the pain of, like you said, her daughter is walking headlong with a smile on her face into this, repressive fundamentalist lifestyle, pissing away her youth, to be married to this guy that was part of an arranged marriage that was designed for Mon Mothma to get the funding and help she needed from, Davos Skulden. And
Yep.
Take Home is starting to turn on her, despite the fact that he was big dick swinging
Yep.
about, oh, my politics might be too much for you, Mon. My politics might have too much of an edge to them. And the moment it's like, yeah, the rebel activity we've been funding is actually fucking with my bank account, and I don't want to do this anymore. But he knows too much. So like
Yeah. And then
Mon is mourning that she sold her daughter off. She's mourning the fact that she's stuck in a loveless marriage that she knows her daughter's going to be in for the rest of her fucking life. She's mourning the fact that she knows Luthen is not going to let Tay Kolma get off of Chandrilla with a heartbeat.
Yep.
And the walls are closing in. And it is tragic because we all saw that scene and we said, oh, look at Mon Mothma cutting loose. But even then, there was a weird sense of like, yeah, she's cutting loose at this like weird fundamentalist wedding. But even if she was like just dancing and she wasn't, schmammered, like, how much fun is she actually having when this is all under the auspice of this is more Chandrillan, woo, fundamentalism, let's go. Like is this like some type of like traditionalist line dance that she's a part of that involves the throwing up of the hands? And then we find out like it's even more tragic.
Yep. No, it's even more fucked up, man. I I feel so bad for Mon Mothma, dude. And like, we know how this is gonna end. And like, okay, so again, this is why I love Star Wars. Erskine Samaj was mentioned, and I didn't fucking realize it. Because there's that one guy that like is name dropped Erskine.
Yeah.
And like my partner in crime, Eli, literally told me about it. And I was like, dude, I didn't even fucking connect the dots. Because, like, again, maybe it's because of the fact that Andor is such a serious look into Star Wars, and Rebels, like, has that seriousness, but, like, is because of the fact that its animation is more pulpy and fun and everything. I genuinely forget that this is taking place concurrently with Rebels.
At least for now. It's going to speed ahead of Rebels here soon. But no, for sure.
Rebels season 1, I think, started 5 or 4 BBY, one of the two. They're like pretty much at the same time right now. Oh, no. Yeah, they're at the same time because Andor season 1 mentions the Kessel stuff with the Wookiees. So yeah, it's always going to be concurrent. But yeah, like I just completely just did not realize that the person that she was talking to was the same fucking guy who I wrote a 5-pointer on in EC. But yeah, no, again, it's just so man, I feel bad for Mon Mothma, dude. Like, she's fighting the good fight, but fuck, man.
Yeah.
She needs a break. Get her a moderator or some shit.
The rebellion's eating itself. Mon Mothma's feeling the pressure of selling her soul in many ways and watching everything come crashing down. And the survivors of Ferrix are doing their best. Like,
I would be very interested to see. I'll be very interested to see like just Mon Mothma's arc by the end of this show and how it leads into like the fact that like, oh yeah, the first time we see her in Rebels, she's like, fuck these guys. I'm gonna denounce the Gorman massacre and we're gonna join the rebellion.
Yeah,
like,
we're announcing yeah. And with the stuff with the Ferrix people, it was Rao something or other is the planet.
Mina
Rao, thank you. And we have Will doing his best to just be a normal teenager with a teenage romance. He can't have that. Bix is living in the throes of the trauma of her being tortured and victimized on Ferrix. Brasso's trying the best to put on a brave face for everybody else. It's really bleak stuff. And, content warning. We're going to talk about what happens in episode 3 now. Speaking of a content warning, the more I've talked to Taylor, the more I have come away with, I think the thing I'm most upset about with that is that there was not a content warning.
Yeah.
And I thought maybe because when I hit play next episode and I was bullshitting on my phone during the recap, I missed it.
Yeah.
And maybe it was in the description. So after I watched the episode before I went to bed, I literally I was brushing my teeth and I pulled up Disney Plus on my phone. And I rewatched like the first 10 minutes of the episode on my phone, waiting to see if there was a content warning and reading the description to see if there was one. And I think for me personally, and this is all going to hinge on how I feel about this individually, I'm not speaking for anybody. I do not purport to. I am a white, straight passing man who does not have to deal with the realities of this real world shit at all. That said, I have always been uncomfortable with and not supportive of depictions of sexual assault in media. Because I think it is oftentimes dangerous I think one, even with the best of intentions, can accidentally slip and fall and create a scene that ends up being spectacle, that ends up being shock value, that can end up being trivializing. And I think that there is a danger of men writing scenes like this, creating weird scenarios where a woman in that piece of media is victimized, brutalized, put through incredible trauma, and it is used as a motivating force written from the perspective of somebody with zero lived experience with something that is so just profoundly earth-shaking and reality rattling for victims of sexual assault. So my default setting is I don't want it in anything, period. Now, does that take come from a place of privilege? Probably. Does that take come from a place of maybe there's a part of my brain that doesn't want to see it because it makes me uncomfortable because I have to look a reality in the face that I don't have to live with? Maybe. Probably. Is part of that due to the fact that, like, after watching so much discourse about Game of Thrones and its propensity to depict sexual assault in a kind of flighty, you know, in a way that felt almost as glib as a gory murder during a battle, and all of the fallout that would come from those conversations. Again, probably. But I had a conversation with Taylor, who, on the record, has not finished Andor season 1 yet. We are like in the last stretch of the show. But this morning when we were on our ways to work, I was like, "Hey, sorry to do spoilers," but she's also pretty ambivalent towards spoilers. I was like, "But I really need to hear your opinion on this." Because my knee-jerk reaction was a mix of, I think it's really hard to depict this responsibly in anything, and this is already so difficult to do responsibly, period, and it for damn sure does not belong in Star Wars.
Yeah.
Now, my initial take on the "It doesn't belong in Star Wars" was a mix of things. Part of it was, as I've said many, many times on this show and on other shows and online, that the bizarre pedestal that Andor has been put on because of its dark, gritty nature has always frustrated me. Friend of the show, Alden Diaz, used the brilliant term of Andor and Rogue One as well, kind of running up to the fence of what you can do in Star Wars and not jumping the fence, but shaking it. And I would define most of Andor season 1 and a lot of the darker places it goes as shaking the fence. And, in terms of theme, and in terms of like some of the stuff that's depicted. Now, upon revisiting Andor, I have walked that back a little bit insofar as I don't think Andor goes as far as I think we thought it did when we first watched it a couple years ago. And there was a part of me that was like, oh God, like, the first 3 episodes of Andor came out the last time around, and Cassian kills a cop and somebody uses a non-Star Warsy curse word, and he talks to a sex worker, and all of this stuff. And then that was people, this is real, this is for grown-ups, get this kiddie shit away from me, fuck Baby Yoda. And there's a part of me that very cynically was worried that we were going to start talking about like a depiction of an attempted rape as another like nail in the coffin for Baby Yoda. And I'm happy to say I haven't seen that. There might be people having that kind of brain dead conversation. I'm sure as shit glad I haven't seen it as of now. But I talked to Taylor and I was like, I don't think it belongs in Star Wars. And she said, and I love her for this, she did not mince words. She said, I think you're being really precious about Star Wars right now. I think you are pearl clutching. And she was like, the simple reality is that when people who love power, who love abusing that power, who love enforcing that power upon other people, are in so much control. This is a simple reality. This is a reality of war. This is a reality of existence for women, period. That at any moment, somebody with some amount of authority will put you between the rock and a hard place of, or the potentiality that you will be put in the rock and a hard place of, you will either lay down your life or you will let me take advantage of you in the most like intimate, personal, fucked up way imaginable. And went on to talk about if there's going to be a show that's going to talk about a woman's place in a growing rebellion against this fascist dictatorship, the simple reality is there's going to be a lot of women in that army who have been victimized in period, but more than likely, if not directly by the imperial system that facilitated it. And you know, I had that initial, this doesn't belong in Star Wars. And I do think she's right that that's coming from a place of privilege, because there's a part of me looking at this and reacting and going, no, 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 no. Too real, too serious. And that's a lot for me to unpack, just thinking about like why I react that way. At the end of the day, this is the kind of thing where your mileage is going to vary on, and your comfort level with it is your comfort level with it. And I don't necessarily, that's a lie. I was going to say there's no wrong way to react to this, and we're not going to get bogged down in the fucking weeds of theory. That is the wrong way to react to it. Weird shit about Vader would never allow it, I think is fucking stupid and trivializes the issue in the exact way I think is repulsive to do so. But all of that to say, I kind of had like a very real world moment where I was like, why do I feel the way I feel about this? And kind of trying to unpack where that reaction was coming from. People's mileage is going to vary. How you feel is how you feel. I stand by. I think it was unacceptable that there wasn't a content warning.
Yeah.
I think that's unacceptable. Truthfully. Like, I'm sorry. Again, not to trivialize any of this stuff, but like when Obi-Wan Kenobi came out, and granted, it was only a week and a half after Uvalde.
Yeah. We got a content warning about
them
that.
Slapping a content warning on the Order 66 stuff, I get. And I think it was a wise and mature and gracious decision to do that. I also think, and again, I'm not going to do some weird thing about like trigger warnings are for pussies, because that's the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard in my life. I'm not going to get on that bizarre high horse, but I think on some level, if you're tuning in to watch this show about Obi-Wan in the years after Revenge of the Sith, mourning the loss of the Order, who is on a collision course with Darth Vader to have a confrontation that will illuminate where they are at this midpoint before A New Hope takes place, I don't think it is unreasonable to assume that the audience has an inkling that they will see Order 66. Right? However, despite that assumption that you should probably expect to see a flashback to Order 66, in particular to Operation Nightfall, it was still the smart, morally correct, gracious thing to do to put a content warning on it. Despite the fact that I think most people could have assumed this will be in there at some point.
Yep.
I look back to Inquisitor, Rise of the Red Blade, and how that book begins with a content warning disclaimer saying there is a suicide depicted in this book. Proceed with caution. That starts with it. Kenobi starts with it. Suicide, subject matter you don't really see in Star Wars, period. You know, very, very few instances of that I can think of off the top of my head. But using the TV comparison, I think it is insane to not put it here. Because when you turn on Star Wars, you do not expect to see sexual assault depicted. I expect Order 66. You know, I expect Order 66 when I'm watching a show about Order 66. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like the expectation, and I hope I'm not rambling and I hope it fucking makes sense. I just like, the more I've thought about it, the more and more I'm like, I accept the artistic decision here and the metaphor and what it means for Bix. But this sticking point is one that I will not relent on. Like, there needs to be a content warning on that episode. And one that, like, appears after the recap.
Yeah.
You have to put it after the recap. Because if you put it before the recap in a place where it can get skipped, I think that's also kind of shitty.
Yeah.
Like, I think you should get through the recap. You know, viewer discretion is advised. You know, themes of sexual assault are depicted in this episode of Andor: Star Wars Story. And that's all you need. Just black and white, you know, black screen, white text, and then move on into the fucking episode. It's all you need.
Yep.
In my opinion. I have ranted about this, Connor. How do you feel about this? Because I do think this is kind of like a weird watershed moment for Star Wars where we're all kind of like, whoa, like shit just got real. So how did you feel about this? I know in our group chat you were like, you were not as like pearl clutchy and like kind of like dropped your phone, you know, kind of like dropped the remote out of shock. Like obviously it's shocking. I don't want to say like you weren't shocked.
Yeah, no, it was, and I guess again, from a place of privilege that I'm in, I am a straight white dude. Like, that is like the archetype right there.
Yeah.
In terms of privilege in the United States, and just, I guess, in the world for the most part, generally. So again, this is not the reality. That is not the reality I face. But it was still uncomfortable watching it, especially in the context of what it means real world wise, and in the context of Bix's character. It's like, dude, give her a break, man. What are we doing here?
And that was a point Taylor made too. You know, like, I don't want to tell tales out of school. A friend of ours specifically was like, it feels weird that it's this character who keeps being defined by being victimized that this had to happen to.
Yeah.
You know? And I brought that up to Taylor and she was like, yeah, but that's the type of person this fucking happens to. You know, that like that predators will seek out somebody who clearly like has like a little bit of world weariness to them, specifically because, you know, there's a sense of like, I can prey upon you because I know that like you have been beaten down by the world element to it. But I also was like, God damn it, Bix, fuck, God damn, like,
Yeah.
not Bix again. Like, let her
Like,
fucking be.
I'll say it again. Like, I straight up texted a friend of mine. Oh yeah, it'd be cool if Bix could meet the Skeleton Crew kids. I feel like that'd be a cute crossover. And full disclosure, again, I wrote that before episode 3.
Yeah.
And I was like, damn, I cooked here unfortunately. But like, again, to go back to it, it was, so full disclosure, I don't know what it is. I think just generally in terms of spoilers for Star Wars stuff, there's like 99% of stuff that comes out now, I kind of don't really care about getting spoiled on, besides like the Jedi games and like some other stories.
Yeah.
And I'd say, and I'd classify Andor as one of the stories that like I don't really care about getting spoiled on, because like for the most part, we all know what's going to happen.
Yeah, there's a sense of like, it's not about what, it's about how.
So that being said, in my one group chat that Jared and I are in, I was just like going through, and one of our friend of the show and Bastards player, Michael McCoy, texted and obviously blocked it out with spoiler text about the sexual assault that Bix goes through. And so I saw that before I saw the actual thing happen. So in my head, the way it was colored was worse than what it actually was depicted, but it was still uncomfortable.
You did, because you just knew it was there. It's like,
so I guess I got a trigger
not to
warning.
trivialize it, but like using
Yeah.
kind of like a universal comparison point. It's like the Jaws effect of like,
Yeah.
because you can't see the shark, you're imagining something far worse than they can put on screen.
Yeah.
And that also comes with, did he specify it was Bix, or was it just it happens, and then you also have the like where, who, when, where, what, why of it all, of like what the fuck is it, what
I think he might have specified Bix. I can't remember though, but like I just remember like when he texted it, I was like, oh darn, that's weird. Like that's very strange that they're doing this in Star Wars. And so I think I kind of figured it out when the fucking weird ass Imperial officer came in and he's like, oh, I need to relax and everything. And I'm like, all right, dude, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I just was like, yeah, watching it. I like what it actually played out on screen was uncomfortable, but I guess the potentiality of it, like if it got further, was worse, obviously.
Yeah.
And again,
and I was talking to
props
Taylor
to Bix for kicking the shit out of him.
Yeah, killing him with blunt force was nice. But oh no, and I told Taylor again, for me it was like, and again, this is just a me thing where it's like, I feel like you're playing with fire. I feel like it's really hard to responsibly depict this in media and it not come across in really poor taste.
Yeah,
and I'm not saying this did. It's just one of those like, I don't know if this has a place in like fiction to be depicted like this, and like, I don't know. I have a weird standard where I'm like, I don't want anybody who has not, unfortunately, it has lived experience writing this. I don't think it's the place of anybody who's not experienced at writing it. In the same way that like, I never want to see a fucking white man write Black Panther in 2025. Like there's there's too much lived experience. There's your Luke Cage or whatever. Like there's too much lived experience. I don't think a white man has a place writing. A white person, period, has a place writing in those stories. And this is one of those similar things. And I even told Taylor, I was like, there was a part of me that was like, I don't know. Like, I feel like you can show it's him dragging her semi-unconscious towards the bed was a sticking point for me. Where I think you can nix that part, have him get handsy, try to force himself on her, and like show her picking up the hydro spanner. I think they cut back to the stuff happening on Chandrilla. And then when we come back, Bix is going sicko mode on this piece of shit with a hydro spanner. And then he staggers out and he passes out. And it's something that like, obviously the scene is meant to make you uncomfortable. The scene is made to fill you with the terror of like, look how fucking depraved and monstrous these sons of bitches are.
Yeah.
I just
Horrifying.
also there's a part of me that's like, there has to be a way to sidestep this. And maybe part of that is me subconsciously me trying to censor that scene because there isn't a content warning. And maybe if there's a content warning, I'd be like, okay, like you warned everybody, everything is fair game, do what you got to do. But yeah, and I will
But they
say like the inability to mentally prepare for that,
yeah.
I think weirdly takes away from the rest of the episode. You know, like Brasso fucking dies.
Yeah.
And because of how shocking that moment is in Star Wars, to exist in a Star Wars story, I had such a hard time like processing that he died. It was all I was thinking about this morning, and that was part of why I went to watch Alex's video, and I think he tackles it very well. You know, I think Alex, you know, I'm having this weird moment of like kind of talking about like the weird fandom of it all and like the, you know, what is and isn't Star Wars and my own opinions on this stuff in media. You know, where Alex is just like, yeah, this is a piece of shit fucking creep doing piece of shit fucking creep shit. And he died and he deserved it. And you know, I commend him for just kind of getting to the meat and potatoes of it in a way that I'm not.
Yeah.
You know, but like watching his video, I had a moment of, oh fuck, Brasso died. You know, there was almost a moment where I forgot Brasso died, and you know, like how foreboding the moment with Take Holma was stuck with me. You know, because it lived in that area of like, you know, much like the hostages on Aldani, you don't see Cinta pull the trigger, but you know she did. And similarly here, you know, like you don't see her pull the trigger on Take Holma, but you know she did. You know, it'll probably make it look like an accident because he can't stop drinking. So like that stuck with me. But like I had a moment where I like fucking forgot Brasso died because I couldn't stop thinking about this.
Yeah.
And again, does that make me privileged that I'm like, oh man, I forgot about this character I like dying because I was too busy, you know, clutching my pearls over this very real, mature thing? Perhaps.
Yeah. And I
Perhaps
guess
it is. But like
and
it is just so shocking, like, because this story does not exist in a vacuum, that that just how shocking it is just on its own a point of contention for me.
yeah, and I guess like probably the only thing I'm really like real clutchy about with it is that like it felt like it, to me at least, it sort of, to go back to your whole like shaking the fence sort of thing, it like crossed a line that I didn't expect to be crossed in Star Wars. And so I'm very like, ha, little strange to put it like that. So I just, yeah, it was very, again, very uncomfortable. I think I saw that, you know, I'm gonna butcher the actress. I'm gonna butcher Bix's actress's name, so I'm just not gonna bother saying it. But she talked about that scene, and Tony Gilroy also, I think in an interview with the Hollywood Reporter, talked about the scene too.
Adria Arjona.
Adria.
I'm assuming it's a soft silent J. It could be Arjona. I think it's Arona.
Okay. Yeah, Adria talked about it, and Tony also talked about it. So, yeah. I
Send that
can't.
interview my way because I'm very interested to hear the actor's thoughts on it. Because I remember that this is one of the interviews I saw from the Celebration Live stuff. Was Bix talking about, or I'm sorry, Adria talking about, like, you know, I wanted to walk in Bix's shoes. How she kept Bix's boots when she wrapped on production of Andor, And she was like, I wanted to walk in Bix's shoes because she is so strong and she is so, she has so much fortitude mentally, physically, spiritually. That, like that, but then that was also a softening factor for me when I thought about that later, was that like, someone tries to rob her of her autonomy. And not only do they fail in doing so, they paid for it with their life and they deserve to.
Yep. And then we're probably going to see her do some fuck shit later on in the show.
Yeah, I mean, there's that shot of her like blowing shit up somewhere. So
yeah, she fucking just blanks a guy. Which
cool.
The other another thing I keep forgetting about is that like at one point this show is supposed to be 5 fucking seasons.
Yeah, buck wild.
Like, dude, the 3 episodes we got would have probably been a whole fucking season.
Which makes me go, how long was Cassian stuck on Yavin 4 in the original version of this show? How fucking long are these bumblefucks in the jungle trying to get this TIE fighter to fly?
Oh my god. Oh my god. That was so goddamn funny. And just again, the reveal that it's Yavin was so good. Because I just did not think about the planet. I was just like, oh, he crashed. Like he's on some random fucking jungle planet.
Yeah. Well, at first I didn't realize he ended up on a different planet than Sinar. At first I thought he just got into the wilderness of Sinar, and then he's like, yeah, I was supposed to come here after I got done with this. And I was like, oh, cool.
Also, small thing about the like Chandrillan wedding that they did that I noticed is that the groom cuts off the braid of the bride, much like how a Jedi Padawan's braid gets cut off when they're becoming a knight. And it felt so much more messed up than that.
Yeah.
It just
I mean, it goes to, not to keep dwelling on this scene, but it does speak to a level of like, it does speak to a level of the show having a very complex, tasteful conversation about these patriarchal societies taking away the autonomy of women.
Yeah.
The male, I should say, because Davos Skulden's kid doesn't fucking look like he could ride a few roller coasters. That's a fucking kid. They're both kids. That's the point of how fucked up it is. It's not me making fun of him. He's, he's young. I can't call him a man, but like, the male in the marriage, in many, it's very much like the real world. A lot of marriage traditions, go back to a dowry. This whole, she is shedding a part of herself for the marriage, and like the Chandrillan like lopsided braid thing, which is reminiscent of a Padawan braid, but like the way that it's like part of the hair is styled in such a way that it is implied that it's already waiting for the other one to drop. So that kind of like implied subconscious level of control and misogynist violence it's present and it ranges from everything from I am going to I give you this knife, I do not plan on returning it, which I can only assume is like the customary phrase, and then shearing the hair. It feels like ownership is being taken.
Yep.
And again, you can get into all the weird traditions of marriage in the real world, and in the modern age, some people find a lot of them, some people retroactively make them more romantic than they were in the past. Again, the trials and tribulations of Katie's father being present at Katie and Scotty's wedding, seeing Katie be escorted down the aisle by her father to give her away. Again, weird fucking phrase. But like that reduced me to tears. It's a meme. We all post the memes of me weeping at the wedding at that exact moment. But
it
it's
was
real.
at this moment he knew he fucked up.
Yeah. I'm sitting there just sobbing as they come down the aisle together. So like there is something weird, not weird, but like there's complicated ideas at play here. And I do think they were tackled in a tasteful and calculated way.
And
I
there's
praise
also
show
the
for
fact that even before all that, we get the scene with Lita and Mon, and the whole thing of Mon Mothma basically being like, we can call this off if you want to. And then
Yeah.
she just straight up begs for it. And then she just goes, I wish you were drunk. I was just like, damn.
Yeah, but there's also an unspoken tragedy to that too. Where on some level, I think Mon Mothma is grateful that Lita is like so happily running away from her because it means that she will be safer from Mon and safer from like what she has to do. And I think on some level, Lita, flying the coop and engaging in all of this stuff, I think Mon Mothma wants nothing more than for Lita to have her own choices in the matter. But at the end of the day, it will insulate her from the dangers of being the daughter of an insurgent leader. And I think it will also embolden Mon Mothma to take more forceful action, like publicly denouncing the Empire and declaring war.
Yep. And we didn't even mention it. Deidre and Cyril.
Oh my god. Holy shit. Okay,
So,
can I give a piping hot take?
Go.
And I'm going to cue up a clip because I know everybody's going to say this about me. I don't mind. In fact, I think I kind of like the bizarre dysfunctional relationship between Cyril Card and Deidre Miro.
Death to all of them.
I kind of love it. I kind of love it.
It's entertaining. And I guess it's supposed to be entertaining because
I'm not watching that and going couples goals, but it's also like I'm kind of fucking loving these scenes of like Cyril going like, "Oh hey, I didn't think you'd be home yet," and that and again, there's also like the weird dysfunctional nature between Cyril and Edie, thank you. I fucking had her name and then it ran away from me. Like the weird dysfunctional relationship there and how like Edie's weird, overbearing, like very like psychologically abusive relationship with her son turns him into this like overachieving little man disorder thing going on with Cyril and how that created that and how like it makes their relationship a fucking minefield and the way that Deidre just kind of stands up and slaps Edie in the mouth with the this is how you're going to play this, like your behavior will be directly correspondent to how much access I allow you to have to your son. Like it's fucking brilliant. And Cyril is a deeply codependent human being who needs the approval of others, namely women, to function in the world. Like again, I'm not saying any of this is healthy or to be celebrated. I just kind of fucking love this weird ass couple.
And here's the thing too. I just did not expect any of that because again, I just haven't, because like usually when it came to Star Wars, I would always follow all the behind the scenes stuff. But like with Andor, I just didn't do that. So like I remember when I see Deidre in like regular non-Imperial garb and her hair's down, I'm like, huh, interesting. We're getting a look at, Deidre Mero in like civilian
when she's
off the clock. And then Cyril shows up and then they start talking. I was like, wait, what?
Plus Cyril, I also love, this is so fucking funny. Low-key, one of the funniest things Star Wars has ever done is the fact that they use Cyril saying, there's a life here for those
there's a future.
Dare.
Yeah, there's a
future there for those who dare. And that like that sounds so adventurous. That sounds like some shit that Jod Nanal would have sold the fucking kids in Skeleton Crew. Like it's just so full of like adventure and wonder and like, ooh, what does that even mean? And it sounds so weird coming out of this guy's voice or this guy's mouth. And then to find out that is how he's selling being a pencil pushing, spreadsheet making fucking drone for the Empire is so goddamn funny. It is so goddamn funny that there's a future here for those who dare is him going, I saved the Empire by finding out that we lost $200 in our infinite military budget. Fucking amazing shit.
Here's the thing that cracks me up is that
this show is so fucking funny in such subtle, stupid ways.
Like, it's that, dude, the two instances where this show is so goddamn funny to me is that and then the fucking It's Tubes in season 1.
Oh god, It's Tubes is one of the funniest things in Star Wars.
For me,
like, literally top 10 funniest moments in Star Wars is Tubes. And then the way Tubes say, "Who the fuck are you talking about?" It's fucking great. It's one of the best moments in all of Star Wars.
And like again, for me, in my mind, at least, that moment works really well as someone who has read the books and comics. Like that moment works really fucking well. So I think it probably works pretty well on a surface level, but I think it works really well on a deeper level. But here's the thing that kills me about the Cyril Karn quote is that like I just know a couple months, couple years from now, you're gonna see fucking like those little quote boards online that are just gonna have random fucking Star Wars quotes, and that's gonna be one of them, and you're not gonna know the context of it. And like people are gonna like see that quote and they're like, oh, that's a really cool Cyril Karn quote. That's really badass. There's a future there for those who there's a future here for those who dare. I wonder what he meant by that. To then find out the actual context of it is just gonna be so goddamn funny.
I so badly want to like log on to Vistaprint and get like one of those like inspirational posters you only ever see in a corporate office where it's like an eagle taking flight. And it's and like for it to just say courage in like papyrus font, and then beneath it have there's a future there for there's a future here for those who dare. Like you said, just hang it up like it is not this pencil pushing limp dick fucking boot licking cuck glorifying, making spreadsheets for the Nazis. Like,
how much you want to bet there's going to be some corporate guy in the real world that actually uses that quote?
Oh yeah,
that's like 100%, and I'm going to be like,
right next to his fucking Wolf of Wall Street poster.
Yeah,
but
and I'm just going to be like, well, actually,
yeah, there's no actually people who can't read.
That's fair.
But yeah, Connor, do you have any other thoughts on this first batch of episodes of Andor or Celebration or anything?
I mean, with Andor, another thing, real small thing that we didn't mention, Cassian, at least in the subtitles, it said that it was like during the first 10 minutes of the first episode in the TIE Fighter, wait, is it a TIE? Was it an Interceptor?
TIE Avenger.
TIE Avenger, okay.
Because it's one of like the special ones.
Trivia question.
Because it's one of the special ones that has like that like mini super laser in it, and also has a hyperdrive and better shields. That is why his TIE Fighter didn't explode the moment it tapped the wall.
Oh, okay. Apparently, like according to the subtitles, he says shit.
He does. I heard him say it.
It's just funny that like in the 2 seasons of Andor, we've gotten 2 instances of. Was that the word that
yeah.
Fucking okay.
Lieutenant, what's his fuck? Yeah, he's really like everything starts blowing up on Ferris. He just goes, shit.
I'm trying to think what else. I don't know. Yeah, let's see. Mom getting drunk at the wedding. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, again, all the Gorman stuff is just so fascinating in
So
such a
excited to see where that
fucked
goes.
up way.
Especially with Orson Krennic, man. I'm just so happy to have Orson Krennic back.
I know. I can't wait.
But yeah,
Do
I
we
was-
think he's gonna interact with Mon Mothma?
maybe. I think so.
That's gonna be wild.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that'll do it for this episode, everybody. Little bit of housekeeping. Pro and noob. Like I said, we're making our way through Cowboy Bebop. We're almost done with Cowboy Bebop. We're going to be talking Visions when Visions comes out. So stay tuned for that. Epic Confrontations. I have a match coming up with Scotty Holiday. That's not out yet, but it will be out soon-ish once all of the important people to record some cutscenes come back from Japan. What else? I know I'm missing something. Ionized Bastards, obviously, getting into the final season here, about halfway through season 3. Things are getting very exciting. We had a very special guest in the most recent episode, so stay tuned for that. Yeah, and then Daredevil Born Again, more Andor coverage, Tales of the Empire. For May the 4th this year, we'll have an episode out looking back on 20 years of Revenge of the Sith. So,
Oh, shit, I see that tomorrow.
I see it. I am seeing it 3 times, which is funny that even though I've talked so much about I'm having such a hard time getting excited for this movie, I've ended up having to like. There are a handful of people that I want to see it with, but all of them have to do it on different times. So I'm doing a showing tomorrow with Spencer and Joel, and then I'm going Friday night with Kason and his girlfriend, and then Sunday I'm going to see it with my dad and my little sister. This will be my little sister's first time seeing Revenge of the Sith in a theater, which is crazy to think about because it is one of my earliest memories as a Star Wars fan. It was like playing the Obi-Wan game with my dad and then seeing Revenge of the Sith. They're kind of like the early ones. And I told my dad, I was like, it is very important to me that because this is the first Star Wars movie I remember seeing in the theater, that I get to see it again with you. So like that was the priority one. And then I wanted to do like a second showing, and then everybody's schedules are different. So I'm doing 3. So will Jared not complain about the fandom for the entire time he talks about Revenge of the Sith? Tune in on May the 4th to find out. Until then, also we'll be talking Thunderbolts and Daredevil on TNAP as well. So stay tuned for all of that. Thank you to Ray Clausen, Brendan Marr, and Paco for supporting us at the $10 tier on our Patreon. If you want to get a shout out at the end of every episode, be sure to subscribe to the $10 tier. Paco, Brennan, and Ray help keep the lights on over here. StreamYard's getting more expensive, which pisses me off because there are so many features they haven't added, but they keep throwing in all this AI shit. So yeah, very, very grateful to all of our patrons. $5 tier gets you access to the Knights of the Nerd Republic Versus series, which will be coming back here soon. We just did our season finale of Ahsoka Tano and Anakin Skywalker versus Baylan Skoll and Shin Hati, which was a lot of fun. It was our first team battle. And since we're doing a short season that will be coming back in June for the Versus series, I have made a promise that all of these matchups are going to be buck fucking wild. In terms of using characters that I have been dreading using, like Darth Kaitis, because I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out what to make of him combatively. I plan on having at least a couple team battles in there for funsies. So stay tuned for all of that. Yeah, like I said, $5 tier also gets you access to the entire back catalog. I have a lot of really fun ideas coming down the pipeline for you guys. I hope you guys stay tuned. Thank you for tuning in. Connor doesn't like to plug his social media anymore.
I mean, I use Instagram, Comment JFO, and Discord, but like I'm not giving that out. I use Blue Sky. Like my Blue Sky is Depa Banana. Do I use it? Not really, but follow me if you want. I'll try to follow back. And I write Star Wars questions and co-host over at Star Wars in the Galaxy Epic Confrontations, where you can find all past, present, and future matches over at the Star Wars in the Galaxy YouTube channel. And I also talk Star Wars at For the Republic podcast, where you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, wherever you find podcasts at For the Reap. Just Google For the Republic podcast and you'll find
all the stuff.
So
you guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram at DarkJedi2550. I keep saying Twitter and Instagram. You gotta find me on Blue Sky and Instagram at DarkJedi2552, where you can also find the Nerd Academy podcast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, YouTube, and wherever you get podcasts. So thank you very much for tuning in. We are honored that you have joined us, and may the Force be with you always.
Stop! Move away from the cookie jar.